I haven't raced on Zwift in over a month. No hard efforts, just running and easy riding. So today we're going to get back into a race and see what that's done to my fitness. The race itself, not too pretty, but when I looked at the power numbers afterwards, I found some things that I wasn't quite expecting. Let's get into it. The course for our race today is stage 4 of the Zwift Games, the Petit Pavé course in France. It's a course that's marked by 3 climbs, and I'm a rider that's marked by an inability to climb effectively, so it's a match made in heaven. The critical points of this race are the dual ascents up the Petit KOM, with the second ascent serving as the finish. It's a course that in the past I found fairly tough, but how tough now that I've been out of the action for a while? Well, let's get to the race start and find out. Okay, so we're about 5 minutes out from the start of this race here, and it's been a good few weeks since I've done a race on Zwift. I'm going to give it a good dig today. I'm going to try and stay near the front of the peloton and attack the climbs, which historically have been my weaker points. So, what counts as a success? If we manage to stay with the group until the bottom of that climb, especially if we manage to stay in the first kind of third of the group, happy with that. Having said that, now watch as I get immediately dropped off the start. Okay, and we're off. While we meander through the virtual French countryside, let me flesh out the backstory a little bit. As I said, the last Zwift race I did was over a month ago. Now, I've not been entirely off the bike in that time, but I haven't done any sessions that push you as hard as Zwift racing does. If you race yourself, you'll know that nothing pushes you quite like chasing tiny pixelated people up a hill that doesn't exist. Now, I have been running more frequently, but bike-specific work at max effort has been lacking. So I genuinely don't know what's going to happen when the road starts to point upwards. We're coming up now to the first ascent of the Petit KOM, so let's find out. I'm struggling here. Come on, try and relax. If you've watched any of the other races on my channel, you'll know that climbing isn't exactly my specialty. My goal for this climb was just to stay in touch with the front group, which I was doing a pretty good job of until right about now. Yeah, things are falling apart a bit here. For reference, my FTP is around about 236 watts at 77 kilos, or around about 3 to 3.1 watts per kilo. To be honest, I'd already realised that this climb was going to be a big ask due to my heart rate before we even got to the foot of it. But now we're about halfway up the climb, and losing touch with the front runners is really demoralising. On the plus side, I genuinely gave this a really good go, as you can probably tell by the sweat cascading off my forehead. Come on, that effort's got to be worth a subscribe. You know where the button is. Now remember this climb, because this is where things get interesting when we look at the numbers later on. On the downside, I'm now isolated, and this is not the position you want to be in a race where drafting saves you so much energy. There's an expression in cycling about having matches that you can choose to burn with big efforts. Well, on that climb, I burned all the matches, and the matchbook, and the shop I got the matches from. Now that I was out on my own, I decided to try and recover and wait for a group that I could see that was chasing me. I think my best hope now is to fall in with the next group that comes through. Realistically, they were going to catch me anyway, so I might as well fall in with them and then work with them for the remainder of the race. After a small blip in power to match their speed, I then settled into this new group for a few kilometres. The pace of this group was fairly easy, but even so, I could feel that I didn't have much left in the tank after trying to hold on to the front group up the Petit KOM. I really don't have a lot left here. And the good news for me was we had it all to do again at the very end of the race. I just wasn't sure if this group was hurting too, or if they were just saving themselves and would burn me when we got to the final climb. We're going to skip through most of this portion of the race because not a lot happened. We just kind of trucked along. There was a group that was chasing us down who eventually caught us, and then it was just the long slog to the ominous final climb. That's the climb ahead. Oh God. I was really not looking forward to the second go up the Petit KOM. I knew that I just didn't have any power left to match any of the moves that the group would make. Valiantly, I held on for as long as possible, but in fairly short order, I got dropped. I don't have anything left. This left me to limp rather unceremoniously up the rest of the hill and attempt a small sprint at the top, which was miles under what my normal 30-second power is. Okay, sit rep. Not my finest performance. By the time we got to the last climb, I was just dead. I didn't have anything left in the tank. Not mad happy with it, but that's what you get if you take a big break from the bike, I guess. So, race over, complete disaster, right? Well, that's what I thought until I opened my Strava and was met with the most glorious sight. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And when I went into the figures, the plot thickened. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Let me take you through it. Starting with the 45-minute power of 218 watts. That's my second best power over that duration ever. And bear in mind that's heavily front-loaded with the first climb and then just barely clinging on to life for the rest of the race. Then there's the one I'm most pleased about. 20 minutes at 248 watts. That is a personal best, not just for this training block, but an all-time personal best. And here's why that matters. My FTP is set at 236 watts, and that was set in a 20-minute test. I've basically repeated that power, but in the context of a race, and then held on for another 30 minutes more racing afterwards. So that FTP probably needs to be nudged up a little bit now. The 15-minute power tells a similar story, another personal best. And looking at these numbers, it's clear where they happened. It was all on that first climb. The one that seemed like such a disaster was some of my best power numbers on a bike ever. Now, I know some of you are probably watching this thinking, those numbers are rubbish, but they're good for me, so be kind. So, big picture, what does all this mean? Well, it probably means that my 236 watt FTP is a little bit on the low side, given that I've just matched my FTP test and then done 30 minutes of racing afterwards. This means my training zones have been a little bit too easy, and in the coming weeks they're going to get a little bit more uncomfortable. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Good news and also sort of bad news. Let's answer the big question. How much fitness have I lost by not racing in over a month? Well, honestly, none at all. I've taken home some really nice PBs. Well, taken home. I was already at home, but you know what I mean. What was obvious though was the lack of conditioning at that intensity. Having burned through all my energy on the first climb, even in spite of quite an easy middle sector of the race, I just never got back to full power. And on that last climb, the performance was pretty dismal. The engine is there, it just ran out of fuel. However, the next few weeks of racing and training should sort that out. And if you want to see whether they do, you know where the subscribe button is. See you in the next one.